It is always a fantastic time when we are on these One Academy calls. And of course, we know that One Academy is the foremost financial education platform, if I do say so myself. And what we intend to do is actually give you what is needed for you to make educated decision about your finances. And as we all know, finances are very important. Financial acumen is very important, and we want to make sure that you have the right information. So, of course, the past couple of weeks we were talking about bank and investing risk and a couple of other topics that relate to the normal financial transactions that we do every day. We go to the bank and we do so many things, but many times we don't understand how banking works. And for us to be really educated investors, we need to understand this. Of course, coming from Dr. Ruja's book, Learning for Profits. In our One Academy manual, we touch heavily on banks, we touch on commercial banks, we touch on the nature of banks, and what are some of the outlays that they have that we need to really put in various aspects. So, what I want to touch on tonight, of course, is central banks. I'm not going to do, say, a PowerPoint presentation. What we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple of videos, and those videos are very much, I believe, touches on a lot of things that are happening now, and where we intend to go, or where banks tend to go in the future. And with COVID coming on, everything has been accelerated. It has tremendous acceleration when it comes to innovation, adaptation, and of course, I would I don't want to say inspiration, but you could say that because many things are happening on the fly and things are being adjusted at the speed of light as we speak. All right, so let me share my screen. So again, welcome each and every one of you from all over the world. Good night, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, because this is an international call. So let me just get as I said, I'm not doing a formal presentation as such, but let's look at the real agenda of central banks. Central banks' real agenda, of course, is not to really control the currencies, not to control your money. So the central bank currencies is not ready to control your money. It is to control you. So you have to literally understand this about banks, central banks. Not to say we are bad talking any particular bank, but what we are saying is that you have to understand the nature. And we need banking, yes, but many people say we don't necessarily need banks. So we have to understand what is their nature. All right. So what I want to do is first look at what our One Academy said about the banking system. And if Misha will read, right? So you can see here, this is page 47 of our first level of the One Academy manual. So it says a look at the banking system. So let's take a little look. This is a short paragraph that they present to us of understanding what the bank system really is.
So it says, speaking of banks, we shall step back here for a while and we'll put in perspective the functioning and powers of system as a whole in order to present a more coherent and clear view of it for the investor. Having such knowledge is crucial since the role of the banking sector for the whole economy and the processes that often run in the background is tremendous, and without it, more often than not, the activities of the individual investor will resemble a shot in the dark.
Wow, powerful statement, right? So it's saying that the individual investor without the banking system is more or less taking a shot in the dark. So let's see if that is in fact true or if we could prove it otherwise. Because it affects the investors, the borrowers, and of course the banks tend to make money, right, when we do certain transactions. So there are many other aspects of the banking system that, of course, our manual touches on. And I'll just kind of highlight a few. not getting into much detail because we have, of course, the videos. So fractional reserve banking, we speak about that in the manual. We also speak about all banks are not created equal. So there are different categories of bank, there are different categories of banking. And many times we, the layman, always clump it into one whole lump. And we just see a bank as another bank, as any other bank. We don't know the different categories. But if you understand the different categories and how it is used in the financial system, maybe, just maybe, you can benefit from it. Right? But all of this, of course, is in our first level of our OneAcademy manual. So let's get into, of course, the videos. And, you know, we have our panelists today. We're going to have a short panel discussion after. We have Muriel Azama, we have Mr. Dwayne Cadiz, we also have Mr. Wayne Wilson. So we have really a host of individuals that we would have this discussion with. So let's take a look at what central banks do from Investopedia.
A central bank oversees a nation's monetary system. With their ability to dictate the direction of an economy, central banks play a pivotal role in a country's growth. In most cases, they are not a government agency even though they serve their nation. Their responsibilities range widely, depending on their country. Central banks control monetary policy, which means they manipulate liquidity in the financial system to influence the economy. Their actions will determine currency stability, as well as the levels of inflation and employment. They also regulate banks and provide services for a nation's banks and its government. To control monetary policy, central banks issue currency and set interest rates on loans and bonds. Central banks raise interest rates to slow growth and avoid inflation. They'll lower rates to spur growth. By establishing a reserve requirement, central banks dictate how much banks can loan to customers and how much capital they must keep on hand. And when providing banking services for other banks and the government, central banks loan money to members and oversee their activity. They also manage foreign exchange reserves. In the United States, the central banking system is known as the Federal Reserve, commonly called the Fed. It includes 12 regional Federal Reserve banks that are located throughout the country. It regulates banks and it buys and sells treasury bonds to set monetary policy and steer interest rates.
All right. So literally, that is a small snippet of the main functions of a central bank. Of course, again, we are not getting into much details because we would like those of you who are in the OneAcademy, who have access to the OneAcademy, to get into the manual to get more information on this. Of course, you can also do your own research online and see exactly the depth that central banks go, right? So if you are talking about central bank, of course, there's something called the modern banking system. That was created in 1944 at the Bretton Woods Agreement. So you have to go all the way back then to understand how central banks came about, how our current monetary system really started to function, and what was the reason why the Bretton Woods Agreement was done. So let's take a look at this agreement, because what we're going to do, we're going to actually look at the old Bretton Woods system, and would you believe they are revisiting Bretton Woods and they're calling it Bretton Woods 2.0. This is the reset that is happening, and many of the really financial people were thinking that it would have been a lot later on, maybe next year, that they would have revisited Bretton Woods, not understanding that everything got fast-tracked. And a month ago, the IMF, or 2 months ago, the IMF, of course, mentioned there's a need for a new Bretton Woods agreement. So let's see what the old Bretton Woods was about, and then we'll move from there.
After World War II, it was clear the world needed a new financial system. The gold standard was considered too rigid, but at the same time, economists were worried that countries would devalue their currency to boost exports. For this reason, 44 countries sent delegates to a conference held in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, as of the 1st of July 1944. The US, which held 2/3 of the world's gold reserves after the war, was obviously the most influential player, and ultimately, all currencies ended up linked to the dollar, and the dollar was linked to gold. One important concern arose, though. If a country goes through an economic crisis, how can it get out of it without devaluing its currency? To address this issue, two institutions were created. One, the International Monetary Fund, which was supposed to lend money to countries that are in trouble and cannot attract financing from other sources. Two, the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, which is now called the World Bank and was supposed to help less developed countries grow. Unfortunately, as good as it may have sounded on paper, the Bretton Woods system didn't survive because the United States kept running deficits to fund various projects, and therefore the amount of dollars in existence kept increasing while the gold reserves of the US kept shrinking, as more countries demanded gold in exchange for their dollars. As such, on the 15th of August 1971, Nixon officially announced that dollars would no longer be convertible to gold, thereby putting the final nail in the coffin of the Bretton Woods system.
Okay, so again, a very short snippet of what the Bretton Woods Agreement was supposed to accomplish. It was supposed to actually help nations not enter into any region of poverty. So it was supposed to keep regions really operating at a certain and maximum value. That didn't happen. And we saw the reason why that didn't happen, because America, having the most amount of gold reserves at that point in time, moved away from that agreement, literally. And so it gave now way for something else to take place. So that happened. That is in the past. But they said that usually the future is always determined by the past, and we always repeat history. So now we have reached a crucial point in the financial history of mankind. And never before has there been so much turbulence in the financial markets. Never before have there been so much money being pumped into the system that is really broke. Never before have there been also a massive transfer of wealth as they do today. So all the luminans has actually said, listen, we need to revisit that because maybe we moved away from it and we didn't realize what it could have produced. So about 2 months ago, the IMF, let's see if I can get this, the IMF had a meeting on a new Bretton Woods agreement, or a movement, I should say. So with that, there had to be right. So let's hear what the IMF head had to say about this new Bretton Woods movement.
I first want to thank Dr. Ernest Kwamina Addison for his excellent remarks and for his contributions as chairman of the IMF's Board of Governors. Reflecting on the dramatic change in the world over the last year, I paid a visit to Bretton Woods in New Hampshire, where 44 men signed our Articles of Agreement in 1944. Our founders faced two massive tasks: to deal with the immediate devastation caused by the war and to lay the foundation for a more peaceful, more prosperous post-war world. At the conclusion of the conference, John Maynard Keynes captured the significance of international cooperation as hope for the world. If we can continue, the brotherhood of men will have become more than a phrase, he said. As we look forward to welcoming Andorra as our 190th member, the work of the IMF is testament to the values of cooperation and solidarity on which a sisterhood and brotherhood of humanity is built. Today, we face a new Bretton Woods moment. A pandemic that has already cost more than 1 million lives. An economic calamity that will make the world economy 4.4% smaller this year and strip an estimated 11 trillion of output by next year. And untold human desperation in the face of huge disruption, rising poverty for the first time in decades. Once again, we face two massive tasks: to fight the crisis today and build a better tomorrow. We know what action must be taken right now. A durable economic recovery is only possible if we beat the pandemic. Health measures must remain a priority. I urge you to support production and distribution of effective therapies and vaccines to ensure that all countries have access. I also urge you to continue support for workers and businesses until a durable exit from the health crisis. We have seen global fiscal actions of 12 trillion. Major central banks have expanded balance sheets by 7.5 trillion. These synchronized measures have prevented the destructive macro-financial feedback we saw in previous crises. But almost all countries are still hurting, especially emerging market and developing economies. And while the global banking system entered the crisis with high capital and liquidity buffers, there is a weak tail of banks in many emerging markets. We must take measures to prevent the buildup of financial risks over the medium term. We face what I have called a long ascent for the global economy, a climb that will be difficult, uneven, uncertain, and prone to setbacks. But it is a climb up, and we will have a chance to address some persistent problems: low productivity, slow growth, high inequalities, a looming climate crisis. We can do better than build back the pre-pandemic world. We can build forward to a world that is more resilient, sustainable, and inclusive. We must seize this new Bretton Woods moment. How? I see three imperatives. First, the right economic policies. What was true at Bretton Woods remains true today. Prudent macroeconomic policies and strong institutions are critical for growth, for jobs, for improved living standards. One size does not fit all. Policies must be tailored to individual country needs. Support remains essential for some time. Withdrawing it too early risks grave and unwarranted economic harm. The stage of the crisis will determine the appropriate shape of this support, generally broader early on and more targeted as countries begin to recover. Strong medium-term frameworks for monetary, fiscal, and financial policies, as well as reforms to boost trade, competitiveness, and productivity, can help create confidence for policy action now, while building much-needed resilience for the future. That includes keeping a careful watch on risks presented by elevated debt. We expect 2021 debt levels to go up significantly to around 125% of GDP in advanced economies, 65% of GDP in emerging markets, and 50% of GDP in low-income countries. The fund is providing debt relief to its poorest members, and with the World Bank, we support extension by the G20 of the debt service suspension initiative. Beyond this, where debt is unsustainable, it should be restructured without delay. We should move towards greater debt transparency and enhanced creditor coordination. I am encouraged by the G20 discussions on a common framework for sovereign debt resolution, as well as on our call for improving the architecture for sovereign debt resolution, including private sector participation. We are there for our member countries, supporting their policies. And policies must be for people. My second imperative. To reap the full benefits of sound economic policy, we must invest more in people. That means protecting the vulnerable. It also means boosting human and physical capital to underpin growth and resilience. COVID-19 has underscored the importance of strong health systems. Rising inequality and rapid technological change demands strong education and training systems to increase opportunity and reduce disparities. Accelerating gender equality can be a global game changer. For the most unequal countries, closing the gender gap could increase GDP by an average of 35%. And investing in our young people is investing in our future. They need access to health and education, and also access to the internet, because that gives them access to the digital economy, so critical for growth and development in the future. Expanding internet access in sub-Saharan Africa just by 10% of the population could increase real per capita GDP growth by as much as 4 percentage points. Digitalization also helps with financial inclusion as a powerful tool to help overcome poverty. Just as the pandemic has shown that we can no longer ignore health precautions, we can no longer afford to ignore climate change. My third imperative. We focus on climate change because it is macrocritical, posing profound threats to growth and prosperity. It is also people-critical and planet-critical. In the last decade, direct damage from climate-related disasters adds up to around $1.3 trillion. If we don't like this health crisis, we will not like the climate crisis one iota. Our research shows that with the right mix of green investment and higher carbon prices, we can steer toward zero emissions by 2050, and we can help create millions of new jobs. We have a historic opportunity to build a greener world, also a more prosperous and job-rich one. With low interest rates, the right investments today can yield a triple dividend tomorrow, avert future losses, spur economic gains, save lives, and deliver social and environmental benefits for everyone. At the Fund, we are working tirelessly to support a durable recovery and a resilient future as countries adapt to structural transformations brought on by climate change, by digital acceleration, and the rise of the knowledge economy. Since the pandemic began, we have committed over $100 billion, and we still have substantial resources from our $1 trillion in lending capacity. We will continue to pay special attention to the urgent needs of emerging market and low-income countries, especially small and fragile states, helping them to pay doctors and nurses and protect the most vulnerable people and parts of their economy. Our unprecedented action was only possible thanks to our members' generous support. The doubling of the new arrangements to borrow and a new round of bilateral borrowing arrangements preserves our much-needed financial firepower. Members also have stepped up with essential contributions to our catastrophe containment and relief and poverty reduction and growth trusts. This has allowed us to support our low-income members with debt relief and to triple our concessional lending. We are engaging with members to further boost our concessional lending capacity, to adapt our lending toolkit, and to increase support for capacity development. IMF staff, working day and night, have been magnificent in this crisis. My sincere thanks to them and to my management team. And my deep appreciation to our executive directors. They have been there every step of the way over the past 6 months. The best memorial we can build to those who have lost their lives in this crisis is, in the words of Keynes, that bigger thing: building a more sustainable and equitable world. Our founders did it. It is now our turn. This is our moment.
Very well. So, having seen that video, I would like now to engage, of course, the panelists just with some key points that was pointed out by the IMF head. And yes, it may sound good because she is saying at the end that how their forefathers did it, and now it's their turn. But what really did the forefathers do is the key picture. Did they actually, were they successful in creating sustainable and equitable financial systems? So, of course, I would just like to engage the panelists. Anyone can speak, or we can speak with, start with Dr. Kadies first.
Pleasant evening, Ivan.
Yes, good evening.
Yes,
Mr.
some sobering content coming out of that video. And my sentiments, as I put it in the chat, are if only the intention behind those issues that were voiced is really genuine and really would benefit the entirety of mankind. But just as the Bretton Woods Agreement would have been crafted back in the day, and so the Bretton Woods 2.0 agreement that is being crafted or already probably rolled out today, we know that the architects had one thing and one thing in mind. They were about domination. And they've dominated the world through their creation of currency from that time until now, fueling all their agendas. And now it's just taken it to another level. As we understand, COVID-19, as you said at the beginning of the presentation, was a lot of things were happening on the fly. A lot of things are happening on the fly as we live, as we breathe. So many things are being put in place right now. The masses are clueless to a lot of it. And only because we have been exposed to the financial education and we've been exposed to the history of money, we could have some appreciation and some understanding of to platform off of all the ideals that the IMF chief spoke about, true are good ideals to subscribe to. However, we know that if dishonest men built a platform, then we can't trust them to be honest to run the platform. So that's just my 2 comments.
So, did any points stand out to you?
Yes.
Any point?
Yeah, well, in terms of the different parameters they want to set out, they want to bring equality in gender roles, they want to bring equality in terms of how things are done, that the most vulnerable in societies are protected, that our doctors and our nurses are taken care of. Yes, which are good ideals. But at the end of the day, these platforms that they're building has 2 sides. One, where they are going to use everybody's in the world's personal data to make them a customer. And then the flip side of it is that if those people are ignorant to the education and the workings of these platforms and the technologies behind it, then they would do well in coexisting in the implementation of the system as a team.
Yeah. One of the things that stood out for me though is the debt that they're willing to actually let go. You're talking about 125% GDP in the advanced countries, 65% in the emerging, and of course 50% in the low income. Those are staggering figures. So that stood out for me. Another thing that stood out, of course, is the education of children, which he said that the youths, of course, needed to be educated. There needs to be, of course, more access to the internet and, um, you know, things like that because you're going to live in a digital economy. When you look at what she is saying and you look at our own situation here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have seen some removal of some stimulus packages for education, namely the GATE. So I just want to engage Muriel on that particular topic of the removal of that GATE assistance for the youths, for families who want to really further their children's education, and compare that to what Georgina is saying.
Well, good night. Thank you very much. Great topic. I want to just go back and agree with you on a couple of things. The three areas that Georgina highlighted: the issue of the right economic policies, the looking at the macroeconomic framework, and really is necessary in what we see as a debt-riddled world, really post pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. It's worse because of 125% GDP for some countries, 65% GDP. So we really, these policies are necessary in debt-riddled world. And as when Katie was talking, we were in alignment because I'm thinking even from Bretton Woods prior and Bretton Woods 2.0, yeah, there are lots of idealistic things, but it is if they could keep on that course with it. And the second bit, she had 3 points. One was the macroeconomic policies, the right economic policies, as she stated. The other is the policies for people. And the third, of course, is the climate change. And when she spoke about policies for people, if these are not just ideals and implementable real things, then they're on the right track. Because if you think about ourselves, our own founder, our own OneAcademy, our principle really is people-centered because it's about education. You know, it's our own economic ecosystem, that macro element of our ecosystem where we are diversifying, so we're not into one area, right? And what is fundamental thing would have been the investment in young people in education. Yes, the internet and all that, but in terms of education and finance, those are critical, you know. GATE, GATE, there was a need to reorganize GATE and even scholarships here. Let's get that straight, because you know, I was the first director of the funding and grants, that's the GATE program, which introduced the GATE program back in 2005, moving on from what we had was the dollar for dollar program prior to that. And the GATE is the purpose was really to improve the education of our country in the focus was the 2020 vision, and it was then done focus of this educated society. And there were lots of help for people, you're correct, who under the radar, who would not have had the resources to educate themselves. But somewhere along the line, the policies were not properly monitored. A lot of areas were not properly monitored and managed, and you end up with a runaway horse with a lot of money being spent and you're not seeing where it's plowed back into the society. Even if it's scholarships, there are people going and study rocket science and stuff like that, and how is that factored into the society? What needs to happen in anything like GATE or a scholarship program for the country to benefit? It can't be just carte blanche. There has to be some systematic. Yes, people have desires and goals in what they want to study, but you have to study the landscape, the economic landscape, the country landscape, where we are moving forward to, what the emphasis is to help build us. And that is what you need to craft and push in terms of the GATE. Now, the GATE is not ended. What is happening is that there will be means testing, which was supposed to have been introduced. So what is ended at this time would have been GATE for post-secondary, master's program, etc. The undergraduate student would still be able to access it, and they will be means tested to be able to determine their validity to qualify for it, because there are those who may not need a GATE and can go ahead and educate elsewhere. So there are some elements that needs to reorganize. I don't agree that it should be totally pulled out. It hasn't, but there needs to be a measured approach in terms of what the country needs to help push, guide people in studying that will benefit when they come back here to add value to the society. That is what should happen.
Yes, and we totally agree with you, because we're preparing, of course, for the gig economy. So, of course, our education system and methods has to be in alignment with that sort of environment.
So Muriel, I want to... Sorry. Yeah, I want to agree with you. That is the first thing that stood out with me when I heard Ms. Georgina spoke about the policies for the people. In that, I always look for relevance as to why we have OneAcademy. Why are we part of OneAcademy? And why are we continuing to push forward with OneAcademy? And you would see that we're in the right business. Everyone must take note we're in the right business, and we're building a wonderful ecosystem. Because you mentioned it, we have diversification. We're not only pushing finance, we're pushing blockchain, we have Forex, and we have e-commerce. So we're in the right ecosystem. And
not cutting you, Michelle, but that apart, we also have the ability for people to build a community through the OneLife network, you know?
And so when I hear these conversations from the higher authorities, you know, people look up to people sometimes because of their qualifications, for whatever reason. And this is the IMF speaking, and they're giving ideas. So you have the right economic policies, and you're hearing things tiny with the people. Then you also heard about the climate change. You just said about giving the right education in things that will be beneficial at this point in time. And she mentioned about green investments, where it can be actually create new jobs and so on. So if you teach the children the education that will push them in this area, then when we have the green investment, we have the jobs and we have the people that could fit because they now qualify for it. So I want to always look for relevance, and that is what keeps me going in OneAcademy, because she said at the end what their foundation or what they're going back and what the founder did and so on. I can stand proud and say our founder did so and so. I can also say it's our turn. It's our turn. And we are in the right place at the right time. We had 4 years, and yet even though we feel like time has gone forward, well, that's in the Caribbean, but the company has been about 6 years. However, this is the time we can wake up, and get ready to move, because this is going to go rapid. Now it's like, how they say?
Now it's like
the tornado. Yeah, now it's about going now. It's ready to move, because everyone is speaking fintech, everyone is speaking digital, everyone is speaking blockchain. You are hearing it more. So I look for relevance anytime we have OneAcademy discussions. Why are we discussing the topic of central banks? Why are we talking about economic policies? Why? Because we are in that field at this point in time.
And,
Yeah.
and you're so correct. And even talking about the Bretton Woods 2.0, the role of central banks, and there must be clear policies because of how pivotal and how influential the bank is, because we keep talking about systemic risk. And the whole issue of studying the financial sector and everything is so that people can make good investment choices, good life choices. And when you look at systemic risk, one of the and systemic risk, of course, are those things that you can't control.
Yeah.
And one of the an investor cannot control. And one of the key areas, apart from what we're experiencing now that we can't control, the pandemic, what one of the key things is central bank and how they are pivotal in manipulating that system that we have. And if you look at page 21 of the manual, it talks about the decisions of central banks and how they are important to every single investor on this planet and how they impact the interest rate. And I think we spoke about that in
Yes.
the newsletter that was mentioned in the newsletter this last week coming here. And one of the things with central banks is that they are major players in the individual economies, but also their reach expands and influence other nationals, other borders. So their hands are in other borders. So they impact on other borders. And fundamental, we know the European Economic Bank, we know the Federal Reserve, their hands all over. And that has to be that has to be dealt with in terms of the from a policy, macroeconomic, people policy, for Bretton Woods 2.0 to work and not just benefit some.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
As you said, in our manual, of course, you
Page
highlighted this fact,
21. Mm-hmm.
page 21, as the biggest rule setters in the sphere
You
of
said
finance.
that correct.
Yeah, the decisions of central banks are of huge importance for almost every investor on earth.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that is so, then it is in your best interest to understand the role of a central bank,
Absolutely.
right? Because it plays a huge importance for almost every investor. So you have to look at their policies, how they raise interest rates, how they decrease interest rates, for you to now make that correct investment decision at the right time. So
That,
again, it gives us this in the OneAcademy manual of setting our minds
the page,
in a
yeah, and
specific.
the page 41 is riddled. The OneAcademy, as you pointed out earlier, you highlighted page 47, 21, 31, 41. There are lots of information, and of course, supplementing it with some of the videos and the videos that you shared. It's that guide for us to be able to make informed decisions. We cannot continue to chug along, just listen to conspiracy theories. We have to learn, read, and get access to proper information so that we can make these informed decisions for our family and our life. That's why it's incumbent on us, because the writing is on the wall. We at and I'll finish after this, but we at OneAcademy, One Life, we set the bar. We were way ahead because our platform was online platform, which is essential in this current state.
Exactly.
They took in Bretton Woods 2.0 and that second policy for the people. We had it from the start, policy for the people, macroeconomic, the ecosystem, so that sometimes you have to look within and listen to the people who have been reading and studying the manual. And our responsibility is to share and share and shared and share it with people, get people to get these educational packages because it's rich with information supplemented by things that what One Academy brings to the table.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
So you finish?
Yes, I finished. I promise.
So passionate. Yes, of course,
So
Mary.
we see Wayne has opened his
Miss Cabra, I
camera.
think Wayne
Wayne,
wants
you
to make
wanna
a.
chime
It's
in?
already coming up to the top of the hour, and I still had two more videos, but we will
We will
probably
leave that for
leave
another
that,
day.
which was crucial to end this fantastic conversation. But Mr. Wayne Wilson, of course, from the bank.
Good night, good evening, good day to all around the world. Our One Academy once again is shining. You know, I just want to bring the reality of what we have all just expounded on and bring it not so much just to the layman, but to us in our everyday lives. We need our One Academy education simply to exist in the world always, but even more today. Because what I glean from looking at our IMF head is that the systems that are being put in place have always been there. They are now really highlighting them because of where our world is today. But we need to understand the basics, and that's what our One Academy lays out very clearly for us. We have to be careful where we take ourselves in terms of finances. And that is something, even from my parents or for parents, that really and truly wasn't paid attention to because of the programming that they received. Today, we know full well that walking into a bank to take out a mortgage carries a higher risk on your family's financial stability than ever before. So, my just 2 points right here is one, we have to understand we need the education and we have to pass that education on to our friends, family, especially our children, because they are the ones that are coming up in a world that our financial system is broken. And it's all well and good to hear what the plans are, but we must understand that we need the education to guide us through those plans. Because we could very easily sit back and say, there are elaborate plans, our environment, our children, and assistance to bring us out of this. If we are not careful, we can find ourselves right back where we are now and not understanding why. So that's my 2 points, and I hand back over to our diamonds, Ivan and Michelle.
Because you see, a lot of the financial people are saying, okay, so what design would I have to actually make for me to really weather this storm and come out on the winning end after this whole, and that will be post, COVID. What would I have to do? So we give you all this information, and it's literally to show you that, listen, you have this opportunity, because right now it's really an opportunity, and a lot of the financial people are saying it is the best financial opportunity they have seen in their lifetime.
Absolutely.
But for only those who know and understand the new system that is coming. In her genius, our founder, Dr. Ruja, understood this at its core, and designed a system for us to really capitalize on every aspect of the new system. So yes, we get and we understand the world of finance, we understand the world of law, we understand the world of forex trading. Even our children will understand the financial system. They will understand exactly how to make money, what to do, how dreams are made, and every aspect of their lives financially, they are learning from this, because she understands that, okay, we might die off, but if we teach our children, they are the ones that will benefit from it. So she fully understood this, and I think it's one of the best gifts we can give the people who we love, this system, right? I see we have Noel Emmanuel Jack. He unmuted his mic. Yes,
Hey,
Noel.
good evening to our fellow One Academites all over the world. I'm in a state of, Michelle and Ivan, you all talk of the state of two economies. or the tale of two economies, well, in my mind, I'm in a state of two emotions because, what the managing director there of the IMF said can appear, listen to me very carefully, can appear very optimistic, very progressive, very forward and futuristic thinking, embracing all the various technologies, the digital revolution all across Africa, and to help children, and to achieve sustainable development. All wonderful, flowery ideals. But the stark reality is, to some extent, the complete opposite. I mean, the ideas that they have, the philosophies that they have, didn't now start, right? Harry Dexter White and John Maynard Keynes. You must do some research on these guys and look and see the institutions and the clubs, the orders that these people belong to. It is an agenda that hasn't turned, that is steadily moving forward. And while they use legitimate concerns to give to us hope, so to speak, in inverted commas, we have to position ourselves. We have to know better. And this is where the OneAcademy helps us to position ourselves, because we understand the present monetary system, its history, and we understand where it is going. They know blockchain is here, and they, behind the scenes, have been amalgamating the different cryptos. They are positioning themselves for that change, that reset that is coming. And while the masses and a few may get a big piece of the pie or some portion of the pie, the masses eventually will be left behind. We have seen it over and over again. So we are just positioned now. We are now given an opportunity, and what we have to do is make haste and understand and position ourselves and try to empower others through this kind of platform where people can be edified and thoroughly educated, so they know what to do, they know what their responsibilities are, and they know how to perform to save themselves and their families. So pessimistic in one sense, almost fatalistic, but optimistic in one sense, in oneself. I thank you.
Well, what you are hearing here now, as I said before, what I like to do is always give a balanced point of view. So this here you are hearing is the pros, but you see exactly what you said. The other two videos are the cons that I wanted to play, so that people will have a balanced view, and in that balanced view, they can now make up their mind, because we don't want to seem like, if okay, this is the again, we don't want to seem like that. What we want to do is provide a balanced picture for you, the individual, to make a very educated decision. So yes, I have.
Well, I know we're coming to the top of the hour, and I don't want to break your point, but I see Cliff and Donna, who also have some their teeth have been in the financial sector. So I don't know if they want to also chime in and put in probably their pros, their cons, etc. I don't know if we have time, if they could open their mic.
Sure.
I know you're in
everybody.
Yes, Cliff.
Hi, good night. Hi, thanks, Muriel, for putting me on the spot.
Welcome, anytime.
Listen, I have no other choice but to just continue on what Brother Noel said, I'll tell you why. I listened to the IMF lady speak just now, and she is saying I think Ivan even mentioned it, whereby 50% and 65% for emerging nations and 125% of GDP for first world nations. Now, those figures were unheard of just a couple of years ago. Anytime you see you get into that there, you're talking about your economy in catastrophe. However, now it seems as though the goalpost has shifted, and it seems as though it is all right to extend that kind of courtesy. How come first world nations who get into 125% of the GDP don't have to seek help from the IMF. I don't understand that. Yet, I see England now, right now as we speak, have pumped in about 400 billion euros and is the highest injection in about 300 years. Yet, the value of their pound remains stable. You understand? Were it an emerging nation now, you know how much problems there would have been? IMF, the lady spoke about how they're trying to keep stability and so on. Well, somehow it doesn't sound sincere because you have Venezuela who has been clamoring for help. You have other nations who America seems to have in the doghouse asking for help, and IMF don't reach out to them. So it somehow it does not seem to add up from what the lady is saying. And then you now have to then look at, well, maybe IMF not helping them because as IMF you've often heard is a mouthpiece for the US, so that maybe they just to any line for the US here. You understand? So I also heard where this it is said that the Bretton Woods arrangement was made so that nations would not have their currencies undervalued. Well, um, we know of two nations who decided to purposely undervalue their currency and have now risen to be world powers. One is India with the rupee, and the next one even more undervalued is China. You understand? No, it's just that the central bank within those countries have worked hand in hand with the government policy. So when the IMF is saying, listen, they settled for that not to happen, well, two nations showed when they did that how they have risen to power. Now they also have nations who it seems as though they are manufacturing economies, yet their currencies have been purposely kept below value for purposes that benefit them. I mean, I could talk about Vietnam. You when you hear Vietnam having what 20,000 of their dollars, what they call dong, equivalent to a US dollar, and you see the amount of productivity coming out from there, then you start to wonder, well, wait. The accounts seem to be very skewed. So I want to suggest, just like Brother Noel, this lady is talking a nice talk to persons who hearing it and could be swept up in that, but is really far from the truth. Very, very far from the truth from what I'm hearing. And I wish I was in the audience when she was talking. I would have raised my hand to ask questions. But listen, guys, I mean, I don't know how many persons want to hear what we had to offer. Maybe you can just reach out one or two persons. And all we're saying is that what we offer is the truth. But if you want to get caught up and swept up in the lies that people are being just propagating out there, then our education is not what you want to hear. But we putting out the truth, and we letting you see we letting you empowering you, anybody who is exposed to education, to be able now to question what these so-called authoritative figures coming up with. And just like Brother Noel, I really displeased at what was said by the lady. Okay, I'll rest on that tonight. Thanks.
So that means on our next Thursday appointment, we need to show the other side,
Yes.
the because we show the pros, the pros for it.
So I wanted to hear the
So-
panel view.
So we get a panel view, and that's the purpose of having the OneAcademy. It is about going into our product, which is OneAcademy, and for new members to get on this call, as well as even probably prospects, to see what we are being told in the OneAcademy. I love the fact that both Muriel and Ivan was able to quote the pages, put us to the page actually with the OneAcademy. So you're seeing what is being said. Now, some people may think the manual little outdated, or it's not sexy enough. Somebody, it's not sexy enough. But the thing about it is, which textbook is? Which textbook do we know is sexy? What do we have to do? We take the information, and when we have a project, we have to do some more research. And that is where the videos come in and the analysis come in and, different point of view. And we get the truth out of it. That's
maybe
what it is. So you look at the pros, you look at the cons, you look at what the OneAcademy is saying. And at one point in time, we all have to make a decision.
so
Which would you follow? Or
so
which would you believe? Which
so
is the truth?
yeah. So what is happening is maybe on Monday we can finish this aspect of it, because on Thursday next week I have a speaker from the UTC coming in to do speak about investments and so forth. So maybe we can look at having this continuation on Monday for the cons, and let us dissect. What we're going to do is literally take what she's saying and dissect it and see exactly how it fits. So
Yes, I heard Donna wanted to say something. No?
No, next week Donna is presenting.
next week she's presenting. Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
No, that's okay. That's okay. But like I say, you had another part to put out in this, Ivan. Let's move forward with that now. I have no problem with that. I'm sure Donna won't either.
Okay, we can discuss
We
that
can discuss
and
that. Yeah.
complete and
Yeah.
finalize. So I did not know the guests confirmed for next Thursday. So
Yeah. So I
the
I,
part,
I have no. I will, if you ask me, I have no problem with Ivan introducing the second part of this program on Monday.
all right.
Okay. So we'll see what could happen with further discussions. All right. So
We are at the top of the hour.
we are
We
past
passed
the
the
top
top
of
of
the
the
hour.
hour. And
You know,
it is always
but it's such
wonderful
a
when we are in discussion. I love the ideas and the teamwork that comes out, because I may see something in a certain different way, in a specific way, and somebody else sees it, and it adds value to each one of us. I want to welcome you all to join us on Monday. As was just mentioned, at 8 p.m., we have another presentation, whether it be the second part or the actual presentation of the business opportunity. We ask you to bring your guests, bring your members who have never gone into the OneAcademy. They need to understand what is going on. It's not only good enough to own some coins. It is not only good enough to do that. We need to understand what is happening out there. And we are here again next Thursday at 8 p.m.
yeah. So is there anyone willing to make a
Um,
final
Yes,
contribution?
go
Yes.
ahead, Mira.
Yes, I just want to invite everyone to conversations with Zalisha tomorrow at 10, where we have King James and Cameron Ali will be on, and we'll have some very, very thought-provoking conversations. So it's important that we tune in and invite our people. It's on Synergy. If you have Flow, channel 112 or channel 114, and on Facebook.
Yes.
I would like to just
That will be good.
what I should I sanction that, because Conversations with Zalisa just became part of our community not too long
Absolutely.
ago, and this is where you have usability. You have someone that is actually putting her program on our deal shaker, and we are discussing things in OneAcademy about the ecosystem, about our business. So usability and power together. So
And can I just say this before you all go?
forward.
And she is very, very, very serious. Very serious about it. So let's continue to build. Yeah.
And Brother Noel has been one of our first new presenters with his anti his program.
Antediluvian Nature Center.
Antediluvian Nature Center. And this just said it so well. Antediluvian Nature Center. Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
So thank you so much, everyone. Again, it was a fantastic show, and let's keep building. Let's keep introducing people to our OneAcademy, which is the heart, and let us save some lives out there, because it's not going to get better, of course, but you could also actually create a lot of financial wealth from this situation that we're now experiencing. The only thing is you need to have the correct information and implement that information strategically. Okay? So with that, again, we bid you good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon.
We say one's out.
We say one's out.
One's out.
One out.